Welcome to the AI Daily Digest, your intelligence briefing on the AI ecosystem. This briefing is sponsored by bestai.org.
Good morning. It's Friday, March 20th, 2026. We're tracking several high-stakes developments today that are fundamentally reshaping the technology landscape. Let's get right to it.
This quote really sets the stage for everything we're covering. The line between what we think of as software and what we call intelligence, well, that line is blurring, creating systems that can reason and act pretty much on their own.
So on today's briefing, we'll cover 5 key areas. We'll start with the major market movers. Then we'll dive into the hardware wars. After that, a look at a geopolitical hotspot involving AI espionage. Then we'll cover the battle over regulation. And finally, we'll discuss the real human bottleneck in AI adoption.
All right, first up, the market movers, where we're seeing the big players make some serious moves to consolidate their power.
The big story today is OpenAI's confirmed intent to acquire Astral. Now, if you're not familiar, Astral is the company behind some incredibly fast Python development tools, like UV and Rough. And this is so much more than just a talent acquisition. It looks like a strategic play to evolve their Codex platform from just a coding assistant into a truly autonomous software engineering agent.
So what does this move really tell us? Well, it's all about OpenAI's core strategy, vertical integration. They want to own the entire developer toolchain from start to finish to control that last mile of software production. And this is clearly a direct counter to Anthropic, which has been gaining a lot of ground in the enterprise world with its unified workspace. It just goes to show that a smooth, all-in-one user experience can be a massive competitive advantage.
And when you look at the numbers, it becomes crystal clear that this market has really matured into an oligopoly. We're talking about annualized revenues in the tens of billions, so the competition isn't just about who has the single best model anymore. The real game is about platform integration. It's about creating a sticky ecosystem that customers find incredibly hard to leave.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the hardware that powers this entire ecosystem. There's a major announcement from NVIDIA that is set to completely redefine the industry's economics.
So, NVIDIA has officially pulled the curtain back on its Vera Rubin platform. And yes, it's named for the famous astronomer who discovered dark matter. Make no mistake, this is not just an upgrade, it is a fundamental redesign of data center architecture. We're looking at a 6-chip system built from the ground out for one purpose, to handle those next-generation trillion-parameter AI models. But here's the real kicker, the economic impact. NVIDIA is claiming this platform will cut the cost of training these gigantic models by a factor of 10, a 10x reduction. This single-handedly makes frontier AI development economically viable for the big hyperscalers. Your Googles, Amazons, and Microsofts, the ones spending hundreds of billions on new infrastructure. It effectively cements NVIDIA's role as the indispensable toll collector for the entire AI era.
And while NVIDIA completely dominates the data center, this chart shows that that's not the whole story. The hardware market is really fragmenting into all these specialized chips. You've got competitors like AMD and Qualcomm developing incredibly powerful processors for desktops, laptops, and mobile devices, all designed to bring sophisticated AI capabilities right to the edge.
And of course, when technology becomes this valuable, it inevitably becomes a target. That brings us to our next segment, the intersection of AI and national security, which is front and center in a major criminal case that was unsealed today.
Federal prosecutors have just charged 3 individuals tied to Supermicro in what they're calling a highly sophisticated scheme to smuggle advanced U.S. AI technology to China. The indictment lays out exactly how they allegedly did it. First, they used a web of shell companies. Then, they staged thousands of non-working dummy servers to full compliance teams. And with that cover, they managed to circumvent our strict export controls.
The scale here is just staggering. The estimated value of the technology that was illegally exported, $2.5 billion. That number tells you everything you need to know about the immense strategic value that state-backed actors are placing on getting their hands on U.S.-designed silicon. Not surprisingly, Supermicro stock has plunged nearly 20% on the news.
This case really demonstrates, as one source put it, that the fight for AI hardware is now being waged with the same intensity and tactics as Cold War-era nuclear espionage. The implications for the entire hardware supply chain, they're severe.
Now, that same geopolitical tension, we're seeing it mirrored right here at home in the regulatory landscape, where a major battle is brewing between the federal government and the states.
So here's the core conflict. On one hand, the federal government is pushing hard for a single, uniform AI policy.
They're calling it a minimally burdensome framework, and the goal is to ensure the U.S. maintains its global dominance. But that is clashing directly with this growing patchwork of state laws that are imposing all sorts of different rules on consumer protection and risk management.
And to enforce its vision, the federal government is flexing its muscle, using the power of the purse. A new DOJ task force is actively challenging state laws that it considers too restrictive. Billions in federal funding are being leveraged to pressure states to get in line. And on top of that, a new government contract clause now mandates American AI systems and also prohibits certain ideological dogmas, which likely targets things like ethical guardrails or training data restrictions. It's an attempt to dictate standards for the entire industry.
And that brings us to our final story today, which might just be the most complex challenge in this whole ecosystem. And it's not about code or chips or even regulation. It's about people.
You see, despite the billions and billions of dollars being invested, a brand new report from researchers at Google and Stanford shows that the adoption of AI tools by frontline workers, well, it remains stubbornly low. We're talking single digits in many cases. The research suggests the problem isn't the tech itself. It's organizational culture, it's a lack of training, and it's some pretty deep-seated psychological barriers.
But there is a path forward. The Mayo Clinic just published some incredible findings on its cancer care model. By using AI for remote monitoring, they safely delivered chemotherapy to patients in their own homes with zero adverse reactions. What's more, their AI education agent actually increased patient confidence in the treatment. It proves that when AI is grounded in trust and it solves a specific human-centered problem, adoption doesn't just happen, it succeeds.
Which brings us to the central question that's really woven through all of these stories today. As artificial intelligence becomes critical infrastructure, who ultimately gets to dictate its future? The code, the law, or the people? That's the AI Daily Digest for March 20th. Thank you for joining us.